Welcome back, guys, to another Unreal Engine 4 episode, and in this video we are going to try to spawn the floors. So let's begin. The first thing what I want to do is go to the project settings, and I want to create a trace channel. So here under the trace channels I'm going to create a new channel. I'm going to call this construct trace, and that's going to be it for now. Also, in the third-person character, I'm gonna add some variables. So what we are going to need is build location 1. This is going to be the first location from which we are going to start stacking the floors, and this needs to be a vector. And we need another one, and I'm gonna call this build location 2. Also, real quick, what comes in mind is we would need a variable. Let's call this has placed first instance, and this is going to be a boolean which is going to represent whether we have set the first build location or not. Also, probably we should create a component, add a component to our third-person character, which is a static mesh instance. So instance static mesh, and I'm gonna call this build instance. And for this one I'm gonna add a log mesh as of right now, and I'm gonna change the material to be the green, and I guess we have not created it yet. So let me see. Yes, we have not created it. So in the assets folder, I will create a new folder. I'm gonna call this meshes, and I'm gonna drag all of these things inside of here for now. Then I'm gonna add another folder, and I'm gonna call this materials. And inside of here I'm going to create a material, and I'm going to call this green because we need a green preview, and this needs to be a constant. Here we need a constant 3 vector, so we can hold number 3 on our keyboard and left click. This is creating a constant, or we can just search for a constant 3 vector. And for this one I'm going to set green to be 1. This goes in the base color. And then this result material node here in the blend mode, we need to change this to translucent, so we would unlock the opacity, and this one needs to be a constant vector. You can also hold 1 and click to create one, and I'm gonna type in 0.5 on this one to make it translucent. Now I'm gonna go back and duplicate this. I'm gonna call this red, and we need another one which is gonna be gray. So let's open up these. There we go. So for this one I'm gonna click on the color. I'm gonna make this like, yeah, so it's 0.5, 0.5, 0.5 seems good. You can save this. And for the red one, we're gonna change this green to 0 and red to 1. So these are the materials we are gonna need. So I'm gonna close these. Now back in our third-person character. Now for the build instance, we can change the material to be the green one. There we go. And let's scroll down. Let's find the collision. Let's set the collision preset to be a custom one, and let's ignore everything on this one so that we would not collide with, so our camera basically wouldn't collide with this. The only thing that we should block is this construct trace that we just created. So this is going to be that. So the next thing what I will do is go to our construction mode event, and what I'm going to do over here is change the trace channel to be the construct trace. I'm gonna disconnect the delay. We're gonna use it in a second. First things first, we are going to do a if branch check from this return value to see if we have hit something. If we haven't hit anything, then we are gonna just simply run to our construct delay. But if we have hit something, then we need to break our hit result. And let's open this up. and we need to, if we have hit something, we need to set our build location to be the impact point. There we go. And now let's see, now we should probably do another if branch check to check the first location to see if we have set this up, if we have clicked and placed the first preview. And what I want to do is check if this is equal exactly vector. So basically if this is at 0, then what we can do is drag in our build instance, and we can add a instance at a world space. Then I'm gonna split this transform, connect this to the true value, and what we want to connect here is our build location number 2, like so. So this is good. And let's see, so for now, for the testing purposes, let's add our construction delay from the false, and also to the add instance to world space over here. And for this restart construction, I'm gonna move this down a bit, and I'm gonna drag in our build instance, and we are going to clear the instances on every restart, like so. And basically this will allow the build preview to follow the camera. The next thing what we need is we actually need to set up a database with our buildables. So I'm gonna go to the content browser and add a blueprint structure, which is gonna be the S buildables. And in this one, for now, I'm gonna add 2 parameters. The first one is gonna be name, which let's say is gonna be a string, and the other one is gonna be the mesh, which needs to be a static mesh. There we go. So now in our third person character, we can add a variable called buildables, which can be a S buildables structure, which needs to be set to be an array, not a single variable. And now we can add, let's add a few elements to this. So the first one is going to be the floor, which needs to be a log in this case. The next one will be a wall, which is also going to be a log. And the third one, let's add, let's say like steps. So this is our step mesh. There we go. We're not gonna work on all of them, but let's just add them right now. The next thing what we need to do is create a new function, which is gonna be called change build mesh. And for this one, we are going to drag in our build instance, and also we are going to drag in our buildables. There we go. And yeah, I forgot one more variable. What we need is a build ID, which needs to be an integer, single variable. So from the buildables, we need to get a copy from the build ID index position. There we go. So now we can split this structure pin. And now for this build instance, we can set static mesh. Let's set the static mesh to be the mesh from our buildables database. And I believe that's all that we need here as of right now. So now we can go to our UI build menu, graph. And let's see, so here we are setting the build ID for the local for this widget. So I'm gonna move these nodes back a bit because we need to, as this third person character, set the build ID. So build ID, and the build ID of course is this build ID variable from our widget. And the next thing what we are going to launch is our change build mesh like so. There we go, and then we can proceed with these nodes right here, and this should be good for the UI. So let's save this. Now back in our third person character, let's see. Da-da-dum-dum-dum. I believe this is it, so let's try this. Let's press B, select, and as you can see, our build preview is following as long as we are hitting the ground. But as you can see, we don't have a material on it, and that is because I forgot a very important thing. All of these materials, let's select the material, let's scroll down. We need down here in the usage tab, we need to check that this is used with instance static meshes, because if we do not select this for the materials, the material does not appear on the instance. So now let's do the same thing for all of our materials. Scroll down, select the instance. Now once we got this sorted, we can proceed. So I believe a good thing that we should do now would be adding a mouse left button event. And what I'm gonna do here is do a if branch check to check if the construction mode is on. If the construction mode is on, then we are gonna do another branch check to see if we have already placed the first instance down. And if we have not placed the first instance down, then we are gonna do a line trace by channel, and I'm simply just gonna copy this one right here. And we also need these two nodes as well. So I'm gonna paste these in. So this goes to the, actually this goes to the false, like so. And we're gonna switch off the draw debug type. I don't want to see the red line for this one as of right now. And now if we have hit something, then we are gonna set our build location 1 to be the impact point right here. And after this is done, then we are gonna set our has placed first instance boolean to be true, so that we know that we have placed the first instance and we wouldn't do that again. Now let's create a mouse right button click, which is going to delete this location. So on this one clicked, we are going to check if the construction mode is on, and also we can check if we have placed an instance like so. So we can simply just copy that, and here from the true, now if we have placed the first instance, we are going to reset our build location back to zeros like so. So now we can go to our construction mode and let's see. So here on this false, if we have set the build location to be something else than 0000, then I'm gonna remove this delay node and I'm gonna do a switch on integer, and the selection is going to be our build ID. Let's add a few pins, and for this one now we need a new function, and I'm gonna call this build floor preview. And this part, it might be a bit complicated, but hopefully we can work through this. We need a few local variables in here, so I'm gonna add a first variable which is going to be is x positive, because we need to check this needs to be a boolean, because we need to check whether our x world position is in the positive or negative scale. Also we need another one for our y-axis, so is y positive. And then we need another local variable which is going to be our local y, which needs to be a float, and we need another float which is our local x. So now let's begin the complicated math part. What I want to do is drag in both of my locations, so build location 1 and build location 2. I want to split these, like so. And what I will do is check if this first location is bigger than the second position X, and I want to do the same thing for the Y axis. So now I will do two if branch checks. So check one and check other one. So the first one is this one and the other one will be this, the X for the first one and the Y for the second one. So now if this is true, we want to set our X positive to be false, and if it's false, then we want to set X positive to true. Then both of these go in the second branch check, and the same thing is going to happen for our Y axis. So we are going to add this to be false and this to be true, like so. Now we're going to do two more branch checks. So I'm going to copy these nodes, paste them in. So from both of these it's going to over here, and what we want to check first is our local Y. So let's do the Y. Actually I just might copy these to make it a bit shorter, like so. So I'm gonna select the Y and do build location 1Y float minus float. So we're gonna minus from the second Y, and we are going to check if this value is bigger than 0. So float bigger than 0, and this goes inside of here, like so. And now for the other one, we are going to check X, so X minus X, like so, and we are checking the same thing to see if this is bigger than 0, and then we can add this to the second condition. So now from the true, we are going to set our local Y to be the value from this minus, Y minus minus, and if this is false, then what we want to do is drag from this Y, and we want to do type in minus, and then we have this negate float, which basically if the float is negative, and in this case it should be, if it's below 0, then it's gonna make it positive. So that's why we have these variables over here, so that we would know if the value is going in the positive or negative directions. And then we can set our local Y to be this newly created value right here, and then both of these are going into the next branch check. So let's move this forward a bit, and then from this one everything is pretty much the same, except for this is a local X, so we are setting the local X to be this one, and if it's false, then we are going to do a negate float, and then we can set our local X from this newly created value right here. So since my meshes have a predetermined size, and they are basically where they are, there they are. So these are well, this brick wall is a bit different, but this log is 100 by 50 by 50, so we already know the sizes in which we are going to stack these. Perhaps 50 by 50 by 50 would be a bit easier, but 1 meter is good enough for the character to walk through this for the default character. So that's why I picked this size, and also this because this is not a cube, this makes things a little bit more difficult, and I think it's very good for a tutorial to make things a little bit more complex, so we have more issues, so we can fix more things, so we can learn more. So after we have done this whole thing, you can pause the video, make sure you have everything just like I do. Now what we want to do is bring in our step loop into the play, and what we want to do is connect both of these in the step loop. Actually, what I will do is do a reroute. Now what I will do is bring in my local Y, and we are going to do a division on this. So the division whole and remainder. So basically this will give us the amount, how many pieces stack into this y value. So in my case, in y-axis, my meshes are 50 units wide, so we're going to type in 50, and this is going to return us the remaining value, and the return value goes into the last index. So what we want to do now is do another if branch check in our loop body, and we want to check if our y is positive. And also we actually need two more local variables. So I'm going to add a local variable, and I'm going to call this move y, and I'm going to duplicate this float and create a move x values, because we need to determine a distance, how far we need to create a mesh. Basically this will set the x and y coordinates. So from this branch check, we are going to set our move y coordinates like so, and from the index we are going to multiply integer with an integer, and since I know that my mesh is 50 units in the y-axis, I'm gonna add 50. I'm gonna multiply the index by 50, and also I believe we should set this to be 1 instead of 0, because 0 multiplied by 50 will be 0, so that's not gonna work out. So for this one, now we can connect this to the positive y, and also we need another index times, but this time it is index times minus 50, and this goes in the negative y. So now once this is done, we can move on to the x-axis. So what we want to do is add another step loop over here, and everything is quite similar. Again, we need to drag in our local x, we need to do a division again, but this time I know that, yeah, like I said, I know that my my predetermined sizes. So for the x-axis this is 100 and it's not 50 like it was in the y-axis, and the return value goes in the last index, and the first index, let's type in 1 again, and this is going to be quite similar. We're going to do another if branch check over here, connect the is x positive, since we are working with the x-axis, and then we can set our move x values right here. And again, just like in the y-axis, we're going to multiply index, so integer times integer, but this time again this is 100. This one goes in the top one, and we need another one, integer times integer, and this is minus 100, which goes in the bottom one. So what we can do now over here is connect these move y set nodes to our next step loop, like so. I'm gonna do a reroute, and then from this complete we can go to the next step in the y loop, like so. So basically this is going to generate, first is going to generate our logs in the x-axis, and then it's going to change the y-axis and again generate logs in the x-axis. So basically this is going to work through the columns one by one. So now let's actually add our meshes to the game world. So what we want to do is drag in our build instance, and we want to add an instance to the world space. Add instance world space. We're going to split this transform pin, connect both of these to the add instance, and we are going to make a vector for the location, and I'm gonna drag in my build location 1. I'm gonna split this, and I'm gonna add my move x and move y values. So what I will do is do x plus float, so local build location 1x plus move x goes in here, and very similarly for the y-axis, so build y with move y, and the z-axis can go directly inside of here, and this is setting the location for us. So now once this instance has been added, we can move on to the next step in our step loop. So now what we want to do is, back in our event graph, we want to add, so the build ID 0, we want to add our build floor preview, and we want to connect this to the construction delay right here. And one more thing that I forgot to do is on the right mouse button, once we are resetting the build location to 000, we also need to reset this variable back to false. So has placed first instance is false. So now let's check this out. B, let's select the buildable. So if we click this, it disappears for a minute, but if we move out, you can see that it is starting to stack, and if we right click, it disappears, continues to follow the mouse. Let's click this, and this is getting created. There we go. So we have our preview basically set up, and we cannot select multiple first locations if we have already selected one, so this is good. So our preview has been placed. So this is going to be it for today, and yeah, tomorrow we are going to proceed, and we are going to actually build these things to a separate actor which is going to contain our building. So thank you guys for watching, stay tuned, and see you guys tomorrow.